While the offseason and free agency are pretty much wrapped up for most teams, still some moves left to be done, especially with the restricted free agents. I want to talk about some teams that I feel are going to definitely regret their offseason. We'll talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. I want to start off talking about, the whole episode today. I want to talk about teams that are probably going to regret their offseason. Now, of course, this could all change as they make moves maybe in the middle of the season or something like that. Some of these teams still are in talks to make other moves as well. But as it stands right now, on August 7th, these are the teams that I feel are going to regret their offseason. Number one, the Kings. The Kings I think that when you look back on it, the firing of Mike Brown may have set off a series of situations that lead to where I feel like this team is going. We already know that with De'Aaron Fox not really being, talked to in regards to the Mike Brown thing, it led to him requesting a trade specifically to the Spurs. He goes there. The De'Aaron Fox leaving could set off the next chain of events where I really think that unless for some reason this team all comes together in a better way than what I feel like or what it looks like they're going to on paper, Giannis Antetokounmpo very well could ask for his way out of the Sacramento Kings here sooner rather than later. And if that happens, while this team does still have some young pieces that I am absolutely intrigued by, I like Maxime Reynaud. They drafted Nick Clifford as well, another player that I actually do like, right? I like these two draft picks for what they were, where they were drafted at. I think that these are two players that have tons of potential. They're going to have to need development, those type of things. And maybe that's the best forward. But outside of that, this team is just a team that just does not make sense. No actual point guard on this roster. Well, you do have Dennis Schroeder on there, of course, who's going to come in and he's going to play decently, right? Dennis Schroeder's always a guy that plays more than decent, right? 13 points last year, 5 assists per game, 40% shooting. Like, Dennis Crawford is a solid enough point guard, only 31 years old, but you know who Dennis Schroeder is. And he's not really going to go anywhere other than that, right? He is who he is. And that's a solid player. But I think he is better equipped for a team that's already a playoff team. But even though that acquisition's solid, Devin Carter, right? I don't really know. Devin Carter right now is more potential than he is anything proven right now. A lottery pick that was drafted in 2024 didn't do much last season. He had an injury last season, ended up only playing 36 games. They, of course, are hoping that he's going to take a step up. But then you have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, right? Yeah, like the Chicago Bulls West jokes write themselves. And this is already a tandem that is already proven to you with a similar makeup, not the same, a similar makeup of a team that they can't get it done. You got Doug McDermott there, who, again, a player that's okay, I guess, for what you're paying him, but nothing crazy there. Like, this is a Sacramento Kings team. Keep in mind that just a few years ago, we're the 3rd seed, led by De'Aaron Fox, and now the Beam Team era is done. It was short but fun for Sacramento Kings fans, but the Beam Team, at least you always got those memories, because this team, it's going to be a rough season for them. 40 wins last year. I don't even have them pegged to win that many games this year again, unless something unexpected happens. Maybe Dennis Schroeder is exactly what that team needs, and he ends up standing up and being the point guard and maybe better balance. They still are in rumored talks for both Russell Westbrook, who was rumored to come to them a couple of weeks ago. We heard that they also put an offer out that did include Malik Monk to try to get Jonathan Kuminga there. Good luck working that out. That's even more confusion there, right? You got Keegan Murray, who is still a promising young piece as well. But the Kings are a team that I think this offseason has been much ado about nothing for this team at all. And it's all going to probably end up on them trading Giannis Antetokounmpo, getting even more first-round picks, or getting more picks back. And eventually, this team is going to they're on the precipice of needing to blow it all up. And it's going to come at some point in time. The Zach LaVine reportedly has no value out on the trade market. No crap. The Bulls took 3 years to try to move him, to actually find a team that would take him. And even then, it wasn't like it was the best situation. So there you go on that one, right? Overall, this is just not going to end up, I think, in a way where Kings fans who, again, had hope that their team was the team that was on the move and on the rise through that Western Conference. And the Kings are a perfect example of how fast things can change in the NBA, especially when you make stupid decisions. And so the Sacramento Kings are definitely a team that I think are going to overall regret their offseason. But in reality, it really started long before this offseason started on their downfall and where they eventually found themselves. And we'll see where that's going to shake out. The next team that I want to talk about, the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, I want to be clear here. There are tiers to this. It's different levels of this conversation. The Clippers are still going to be a playoff team. They're still going to be a team that goes on a run. You replace Norman Powell with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal and James Harden are going to have to figure out a way to play together. We know that James Harden as a facilitator is pretty damn good. You still got Chris Dunn there, who's been a revelation when people thought his career was over when it came down to it. And John Collins, right? When you look at, I think a lot of what their offseason is going to be and how you view it, it comes down to how do you view John Collins? How do you view Bradley Beal? This is a very, very old basketball team. Very old basketball team. So if John Collins can come in and insert a little bit of youth, right? And saying that at him being 27 years old and a player that's been in the league already for damn near a decade, right? Like, but you know, when it comes down to it, when you view how you view that, I think is a big part on how you view this. And maybe John Collins can bring something. He's always been a player that can put up points. There's no doubt about that. 19-8 last season, 52% shooting. How legitimate can John Collins' scoring be on a winning team? That's the question that you have to ask there. And that's what it's going to be fun to watch for him with this Los Angeles Clippers team. But it comes down to this again. Can you bet on Kawhi Leonard being healthy? Again, Kawhi Leonard had an interesting season last year. Is he going to be able to be more healthy? He's going to be able to be healthy in the playoffs. That's a question that you legitimately have to ask yourself. And have you done enough with this team? You lost Norman Powell, who, yes, was a scorer. You brought in Bradley Beal, who I do think that people have started talking about Bradley as if he's washed. He's not washed. He was just in a situation that didn't make sense, right? You got Chris Paul to be there as another guard for you, can facilitate. He's going to be coming off your bench. First time being a full-time bench player in his illustrious NBA career. But this is a team that I look at, and I look at this Clippers team, and I say, every year that you double down and make more acquisitions to this core is basically a wasted year. They're a fun team. And this has nothing to do with my hate of Clippers fans or anything like that. I really don't hate y'all. It's a bit. Zubac, great player. Like, I love Zubac, and I think he's going to have a really good season. You got Brook Lopez in here to back him up. That's really good. Really good. But where is this team ultimately going to go? That's the question that you have to ask for this team. And a lot of it is still dictated and predicated upon you having a healthy Kawhi Leonard. But outside of that, you got Bradley Beal, you got James Harden. These are two players that in the playoffs, they have put up some of the worst performances in playoffs and let their teams down in playoffs year after year. And that's where you have to ask your question on, where's this team? How far can this team really go? If you guarantee Kawhi Leonard is going to play 70 games and be healthy by the playoffs, that may change it. But we know we're well past that point of being able to guarantee anything even remotely close to that. And so therefore, it's a little bit rough and a little bit hard to really kind of bet on this Clippers team. But they'll be an interesting regular season team. I do think the Clippers are going to be a very good regular season team and a fun team to watch. But for a team that, you know, that keeps trying to keep open that little glimpse of a championship window, it's like a little sliver at the bottom. They're just letting in a little bit of air, and they're living off of that, trying to be a championship contending team. Now, they could very well shut me up. Kawhi Leonard can stay healthy. Bradley Beal, James Harden can do enough when Kawhi is out and is down. If Kawhi Leonard is fully healthy in the playoffs, maybe that changes some things and they shut Hayes up. But as it stands right now, it's some major questions when it comes down to that. But move on. From the next team, though, we're going to go to, that is the Toronto Raptors. Now, the Toronto Raptors are a team that I look at and I say that they moved off of having a team full of very similar pieces, all with big contracts, right? Those similar all wing players that were like between 2 3s and 4s that were all long and lengthy and stuff like that. You moved off of those players. OG Anunoby's gone. Pascal Siakam's gone. You slowly move off of those players. But you slowly now built a new version of that. You're trying to build around Scottie Barnes, which how people feel about Scottie Barnes is a big part of how you feel about how good this Raptors team can be next season. But you drafted Colin Murray-Boyles, who's a player that defensively he's going to be something, right? We know that Colin Murray-Boyles, at least floor defensively, is going to be great. Offensively, it could be a little bit of a struggle for him because he's going to have to learn how to score very differently than what he scored in college because he's just not going to be able to overpower people at the same rate that he did. But you got Scottie Barnes there. You drafted Colin Murray-Boyles, which solid enough when it comes down to it. We still don't know exactly what Grady Dick is going to be for this team overall and how he projects as a piece on it. But solid sophomore year, 14 points per game from him, almost doubling his points per game from year on year, which is really good. Stepped up, played more minutes. That's good there. But this is still a team that you traded for Brandon Ingram. You gave Brandon Ingram a contract extension. You have Scottie Barnes there. You got Jakob Poeltl still there. Again, solid players enough. But to me, they have just gone back to where they were a couple of years ago, having this solid team. And I do think they're going to be a solid team. 30 wins last year. Would not be surprised if they easily get 10 more wins this year. But like, what exactly is the ceiling of your team? Because to me, I look at this Raptors team, and unless Scottie Barnes hits a truly star-level leap, where he is now clearly a star in this league, this is a team that I look at and I say, all right, cool. You're going to be a play-in team in the Eastern Conference for the next 2 or 3 years. And that's just what you look at it for. You got big money paid to Emmanuel quickly, which is interesting enough. It's just so much up in air with this Toronto Raptors team. And drafting Colin Murray-Boyles when some of the other players that were still left on the board, I just don't know if that was the best use of that 9th overall pick. But hey, like what I said with everything else, if they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong. But as it stands right now, the Toronto Raptors is definitely a team that I think are going to regret what they did in the draft and maybe not being a little bit more aggressive and changing up the mix of the roster a little bit more. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Last team, the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, it's funny enough because I respect a lot of what the Bucks did this offseason. Waving and stretching Dame Lillard is something that not a lot of people would have expected him to do with the money that they have to pay to get that done. Getting Miles Turner in here from the Indiana Pacers it was a move, and it was a good move. Trading for Cole Anthony, mid, not really anything there. Kyle Kuzma's still on the roster. You're hoping that Kyle Kuzma with an offseason is going to be better for you than what he was after you traded for him last year. You got Bobby Portis still in the building, like that. But then you look at the series. Now, the thing about this is the perspective on it. You know, the whole NBA world knows because Shams could not stop telling people that Giannis is still not fully locked in with this Milwaukee Bucks team and that he's still reviewing and analyzing where they are as a team. And like I said, they did about as much as they could, but I really think that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to eventually regret not just moving on from Giannis. And that's not to say that Giannis is, I just don't think that they can realistically put a team that's good enough together that's actually a championship contender that's going to convince them to stay long-term. No matter what they do to hold off that decision, I think that is eventually coming, and it's coming down the road sooner rather than later, right? Could be as much as this time next offseason, we're talking about him being gone, right? And so while I commend what the Bucks have done wholeheartedly, and they shot for it, and there's something to be said about that, I think ultimately, like what they've done, Kevin Porter Jr., okay, I guess, right? Solid enough. Getting Gary Trent back, solid enough. Taurean Prince is here, solid. Like they made a series of solid moves. And if the Bucks were already a team that went on some deep playoff run, I would feel completely different about their acquisitions. They made acquisitions that like they were already there, and they're trying to get there. And that's where I have my perspective on this whole thing with Giannis. And like I said, the biggest reason why I think that they're going to regret it isn't just because of just the acquisitions themselves. It's because of what's coming down, what's on the precipice, and it's like a lot of people see it. Now, you got some young players here. You got Tyler Smith there, a player that I was high on in that draft, and maybe you can continue to develop him, right? Maybe you got that. But overall, you don't have the young talent here that you're looking at necessarily being this young talent that takes a leap this year that drastically ups your ceiling. I think ultimately the Bucks are just going to have to come to the realization that unfortunately, probably for the best health of the future of their franchise, they're probably going to have to move on from Giannis and get the assets back and stack those assets and see what determines. But again, I understand it. Not moving on from Giannis until he officially asks for a trade from you, I completely understand that process of things. But will they regret not actually having that conversation with him and maybe coming to that a little bit sooner? We shall see. But let me know what you guys think. Which teams do you think are going to regret their offseason the most? Let me know that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything basketball related. I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.